going on, ChavezzSlovakia? Back again to adjust our childhoods slightly. Maybe just mine. Who knows? Join me for the ride. I've done 100 of these vids because I trusted adults growing up, and they lied to me. Constantly. About things that mattered, about other things that didn't matter, and there was enough truth weaved in the middle where I got a lot of wisdom and some good starting points for my adulthood. And sure, I could probably get a lot of these with a quick Google, you know what I'm saying? Like a quick perusing, but it's hard when you don't even know what you're looking for, all right? So we're taking the shortcut, we're having fun with chat history, join me, let's get into it.
History facts that are wrong.
This, I think we literally just argued about. Me and Skitten just made a joke about this. What are you talking about? They weren't built by slaves.
This is probably one of the first things
it was
we
in
learned
a
about
book.
School when discussing ancient Egypt. Tens of thousands of slaves enduring endless hours of intense, forced physical labor while barely being fed or provided with adequate water. Drop a sack of sand, chisel something at the wrong angle, devout masochist, you're getting a whipping.
Yeah, it was in the books.
Well, it's all poppycock. While there were
Poppycock.
slaves, they were mainly prisoners of war or household servants who tended to their landlords, but they weren't really part of the main labor force. Instead, laborers in ancient Egypt were conscripted using the corvée duty system, a way to pay off taxes through manual labor. According to the book The Pyramid Builders of Ancient Egypt, which discusses the pyramid builders of ancient Egypt, farmers were usually pulled from their laborious crop dusting for construction work whenever the Nile went all floody during the summer months. While the snobby rich upper class folk avoided manual labor by just paying off their tax burden, them smelly poors were tasked with construction of temples, tombs, and pyramids.
Right.
Laborers who worked on the pyramids, as well as other large structures way back in the ancient times, were actually well provided for.
Okay, so from this excerpt of this book that I'm never going to read, so I'm just going to trust what I have.
Okay, the peasants were later gainfully employed for this period on the construction of tombs, especially the and on temples, provided with food, and paid in kind. That's the focus for the use of Egypt's manpower and resources. This suggests that they were using labor force in this way when they're engaged in building the pyramid, and they were but a strong unifying factor which enabled Egypt to...
The peasants were not slaves in the strict sense of the word, although their freedoms and choice of action in terms of their place and type of work was strictly limited by social and economic factors. So I will admit they were not slaves. Was there upward mobility and freedom of choice? No, but that's also true for a lot of the ancient world anyways. The point I'm making could be better organized. I will definitely better organize it. Yeah, this is basically my understanding of it. And I think that now actually critiquing it based on how loosely I talk with other people, I may have to be explaining this a lot better. People understand like what caste systems are. I don't know if this is strictly a caste system. I think it's just classism in general. It's kind of what my understanding of ancient Egypt is. But like there was no upward mobility in society, especially when you have royal bloodlines. So caste systems kind of make a lot of sense as well. But we need to be more specific with these explanations. I think that's something I could do easily. And yeah, if you're strictly limited by your social and economic factors, that is distinctly different than slavery. Conscripted labor is different. It is very similar to how we use prisoners to like clean up our roads. But imagine if we told them it would give you piety to do that. You could believe there's a bunch of people that go, that's a bunch of horse shit, but what am I supposed to do about it? And some people that probably feel really good about it as well, right? So people can kind of gather and come together during hard labor as like a shared experience. You know, kind of like your friend that works construction for half pay because of his documented status, right? Like there's a big culture around that as well. You wouldn't consider those people slaves necessarily, but if somebody made an argument to me about how it is just like slavery, I would definitely be open-minded. But I think I would also filter them back through the, hey, thanks for saying what you're saying, but that of course is not what slavery is, and I think we all know that. So
this makes
very
sense
good
as
one.
having
That
a
was
weakened
good
labor force due to neglect
That's
or
good.
malnourishment. It doesn't really pay great dividends. Can't exactly move giant rocks when you're completely emaciated. Small villages have been discovered built specifically for housing laborers. These sites also contain various animal bones and plentiful bread jars showing a high-quality diet. But of course, the system wasn't perfect. Thanks to some classic upper-class corruption, sometimes things didn't always go right for these laborers.
It's not perfect. Oh, I'm sure.
But they had the power to stand their ground. Dating all the way back to 1170 BC, written evidence has been found of an artisan's strike while constructing a tomb for then-pharaoh Ramesses III. The artisans complained about a lack of promised rations
The
and outright
RuneScape
refused
food.
to continue their work, dropping their chisels and their hammers to march right up to the ruling class's temples to make their demands. What do we want? Food! When do we want it? Food! After chit-chatting with the local vizier, the workers were able to secure their rations and continued their work. Now don't get me wrong, the labor that these guys endured was backbreaking, extremely strenuous, and downright exhausting. But they weren't outright enslaved or mistreated, as historians previously thought.
Right, and I think that's also another thing as well. I was about to just enter it at the end. I think they did teach me they were slaves, period, point blank. But I definitely did get that adjusted throughout history that they weren't necessarily slaves. All right.
You've all heard the legends about King Tut's tomb, right? If you disturb an ancient king's burial grounds, you'll be cursed, doomed to die a horrible death. Well, it's not so. You'd probably cough a bit from inhaling millennial-old mummy powder, but that's about it. Now, there has been evidence of some ancient tombs inscribed with curse-like carvings. For example, ancient warlord and Egyptian noble Ankh-Tifi wrote that, quote, any ruler who shall do evil or wickedness to his coffin, may the gods not accept any goods he offers, and may his heir never inherit. Similarly, an inscription on the tomb of 10th century BC ruler Kentika Ikeki warns that any impure men who enter this tomb, there will be judgment. An end shall be made for him. I shall seize his neck like a bird, and I shall cast the fear of myself into him. Now,
hey, we should bring this back. This is
in a
great.
culture that was super superstitious, anyone coming across warnings like that would be like, "Oh shit, a ghost!" prompting them to 180 right out of the room. When King Tut's tomb was discovered in 1922, no such written reprimands or warnings were ever found. In reality,
it wasn't cursed or cursed? It's not actually cursed with a real curse of a curse, and he's not actually cursing you for going in the tomb? Wait, it's neither one?
The rumor of King Tut's curse revolves around one George Edward Stanhope Molyneux
What are you
Herbert, 5th
talking
Earl of
about?
Carnarvon, a rich English white dude who funded the whole expedition that led to the discovery of the Sandy sarcophagus. He died a whole 4 months after the opening of the tomb. After which a journalist did what journalists do,
But see,
printed
that's
a whole bunch of
curse.
sensationalized fake news.
See, you trying to fake news me. That's a curse. That is a curse, bro.
Attributing Lord Carnarvon's death to an inexplicable curse. To no surprise, the media ran with it, making claims of a written
that
curse
makes
being
sense.
uncovered with the tomb, though this never happened. So how did Lord Carnarvon die? He done got bit by a mosquito.
Yeah.
The resulting bump was accidentally slashed while he was shaving, making a pretty nasty cut that later got infected. The old chap died of blood poisoning at the age of 56.
Oh, it's not even like malaria? It's just the fact we don't have antibacterial soap? Damn,
Dedicated
that's crazy.
believers have tried to attribute other deaths
That's
to the curse,
crazy.
but they're really grasping for straws.
Wow.
Of the 58 people who were present at the opening of the tomb, only 8 had died within a dozen years
That's
of
a
the discovery,
lot!
and by various means ranging from cancer to murder to natural causes. The majority of the men went to live on full, healthy lives. At least they didn't steal any spooky slabs. That might have been a different story.
That's funny. Oh, there
When
was no baby cliff throwing? I think we might have covered this one.
If you think of Spartans, you probably think about them slippery, shiny hunks of warrior man meat as portrayed on the silver screen. A society of strict and viciously trained, bloodthirsty warriors who could decimate any opposing army. But while you're thinking about oiled up, shirtless, muscular men, you might question if this portrayal is historically accurate. It's not. In reality, the Greek city-state of Sparta had no professional army. Although growing up with militaristic training, the purpose was not to create warriors, but perfected, hardened, and respectable citizens who could serve to defend their homeland if need be. That little element of perfection is where some rumors of Spartan eugenics come in. It is believed that ancient Spartans practiced infanticide, the act of killing deformed or undesired babies as a way to strengthen the Spartan society. However, the biggest downfall of this myth is that there's only one historical source that alludes to this barbaric practice, and it's this guy, Roman historian Plutarch. He wrote that Spartan elders would examine newborns for imperfections or weaknesses. Good, bad, good.
Right.
What the? Hello, Daddy.
He's talking! Throw it!
If any were ever found, they would just yeetus the fetus off the Tyetus mountainside. This ensured that only the best of the best would be able to thrive to crushing adulthood. But this bit of literature is almost certainly a bunch of baloney. While historians can't confirm with 100% certainty, they can confirm with 99.9% certainty that this just flat out never happened. Excavations around the proposed baby-hugging sites have failed to
Right.
present any supporting evidence. There have been a few adult remains discovered, but no teeny-tiny toddler tibias
Well,
were
that's
ever
good.
among them. If you needed more convincing, Plutarch's writings date some 600 years after the height of Spartan civilization.
That happens a
So it
lot.
might have just been some silly Spartan slander. That would be like if future archaeologists in the year 4000 unearthed fan fiction from today about how medieval Europeans would just shit their britches to ward off witches. Sure, it's questionable, but you could kind of see that happening, right?
All right.
Despite what
Gladiators
you
fought
may
to the
think,
death.
was not the goal of gladiator battles in the Roman Colosseum. If it was, Rome would have run out of them real quick. Now keep in mind that the Colosseum was active for over 400 years,
Is that the Pokemon Coliseum?
hosting a
music?
plethora of different events ranging from gladiator battles to public criminal executions to full-fledged naval battle reenactments with the entire Colosseum being flooded. Pretty wild, right? Well, gladiator battles were basically the equivalent of today's UFC or boxing matches, just with swords and spears instead of fists. These fights were spectacles of sport, and the gladiators were the athletes. You had some super famous gladiators, rookie gladiators, and everything in between. While some gladiators were slaves, criminals, or prisoners of war fighting for their chance of freedom, most of the big old brutes fought for fame and fortune, or just the high-octane dopamine rush of being able to legally stab someone in the kidney and getting praised for it.
That is a thing.
Roman citizens were hyped to watch two dudes duke it out in a sweaty, sandy, sassy struggle of strength.
Yeah, they're
but
cooking.
things were a lot more exciting than just the vanilla missionary position 9-to-5 white picket fence 1.5 children ass
I'm
sword
sorry,
and shield type
what?
gladiators. Nope. Actually, there were about 30 different types of gladiators ready to clang and bang away at each other.
Well, yeah.
You had your dual-wielding Demochirus, the trident-chucking Retiarius, the silly-looking Caesar, and the alls-out, balls-out Cestus, among other DLC characters.
Oh, the Cestus
So
is
imagine
hard.
that you're living your boring Roman life, sitting in your boring Roman house.
Imagine, bro. Just imagine you go. I'm so hyped. Just imagine you go through. Everybody's training. They got swords. They got pikes. They got tridents. They got spears, bows and arrows, crossbows, all type of shit. And you just roll up with hands. That's so
Plus
hard.
scratching your boring Roman balls when
So
you
hard.
suddenly catch wind of the gladiator battle of the century. Two andabate pitted against each other. You'd lose your shit. Why would you lose your shit? Because andabate were condemned criminals fighting each other completely blind.
Right.
Yeah, as a form of punishment, two criminals equipped with nothing more than a sealed helmet and a rusty sword were dumped out into the arena and forced to square off. It's like
That's
watching
crazy.
two blindfolded kids trying to whack at a pinata, except they're both potential pinatas. Now, while formal gladiator duels were not to the death, of course some still died. But it was more
course.
common to die by bleeding out after the match had been called by the referee. Oh yeah, they had referees. These were often retired gladiators tasked with making sure that the rules of battle were being followed and stopping fights before final blows were dealt. You see, gladiators were expensive investments, so their managers wanted
That's how
them
you
alive
know.
for as long as possible, lest they start all over leveling up another rookie from scratch. So with
Right.
all that being said, professional gladiator battles were not performed for the sake of death, just for the thrill of the fight, and the potential of death.
That's dope. All right. We'll continue it in another one, like always. Other vids to get to today. That's enough learning for me for one time. I'll see you guys in the next one. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'll holla at y'all. Peace.